Every knee gon' bow, every tongue confess, every demon flee, every demon pressed. When my God show up, he make the heavens bow. Devil tryna be like God, but how? I will never bow. No sin in his presence, heaven no land in peasants. They murdered the son if he heard of the one, cause he coming back for vengeance. Better be ready cause he coming back like a thief in the night. And we need the parts, better believe he gon' leave with the light, man. Screaming holy, 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 holy is his name for real. I'm bought with a price, I'm not gonna lie, I'll die before I ever make a deal. Look, I belong to my God and I don't need to cop that rollie. I'm storing up treasures in heaven, cause my God is holy.
Holy, all creation cries. Holy, you are lifted high. Holy, holy forever.
Yeah. All of creation sing, all of the angels stand. Holy is the King, mighty is his hand. Armies by his side, he don't need not one. When he come to slide upon the earth, believe you'll need the sun. Better turn from all your crimes, better learn from all these signs. The earth is groaning, preach repentance, watch the stones will fly. Everybody mobilize, I expose it, I don't rock no disguise, and I own it, I don't wanna vocalize. He coming back and he ain't gonna be a noble guy. Look, I'm trying to keep hope alive. He died on the cross and he broke the ties. So why you out here trying to toe the lines? This ain't tic-tac-toe, need to know the Christ. Better walk that life, better walk that closely. Better drop that strife, cause my God is holy.
Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all. Jesus' name is the holiest name, is the highest name. He deserves all the praise. Holy forever, oh you are holy forever, oh you are holy forever, holy forever.
Hello and welcome to Kingdom in Context. I'm Sean. I want to thank you for joining us here today. I'm joined by my lovely wife, Lindsay.
Hey guys, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, sweetie.
Shabbat Shalom, babe.
I hope everyone's doing well today. In case you missed the beginning of that song, that video there, it's Tyson James. And you can find him on all platforms. And yeah, we're back. We're back. I think you wanted to talk about a few things before we start reading, right?
Yeah, so we have a fundraiser linked in the comments. A couple of sisters came to me with a widow in need. A sister named Carrie, her husband passed away recently, and he was the breadwinner. She needs help with his funeral. I'm sure lots of other expenses. So we wanted to put that forward for anyone who's looking for a way to give alms. Helping widows is definitely a biblically approved way to do that. So our prayers and our condolences go out to her. If you can also keep her in your prayers, that would be much appreciated. Currently there's a couple of fundraisers going on for some people out in the viral sphere, that are raising tons and tons of money for very odd purposes. So I'm hoping that we can, raise some good money for a real, biblical purpose, for a real true need, for someone who really needs the body to rally around them and, help her in this way that we are called to. So for anyone out there looking to help someone, we have that fundraiser linked in the comments, and we'll share it a few more times as the weeks go on. I also have a prayer request. It's a personal prayer request for my sister. And she actually called me right before the show and asked me to add to the prayer requests because I let her know I'd be reaching out to you guys. I've shared with you guys before that I feel like the Lord has so clearly been calling her. And so she's moving into more of a comfort with these types of things. So I think it's wonderful that she was happy that I told her I'm going to ask for people to pray for them. And she also wanted to add someone to the list. So I won't get into too many details, but my sister has ended up with 2 foster boys. One of them is 6. His name is Oliver, and one of them is 12. His name is Caden. And the whole situation that the boys are coming from, that whole situation just needs prayer. Their mother is schizophrenic and has other addiction issues, and the father has addiction and alcohol issues. And so I'm sure you guys can just imagine the plethora of problems and abuse that can come from those situations, especially when you include step parents and extended family and things like that. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on for my sister. So she really could use prayer for wisdom and guidance for bringing these boys into her home and becoming a mother figure to them and giving them the things that they need, not just physically and financially, but emotionally, hopefully spiritually at some point. They definitely come from an environment where I don't believe there's anyone in their lives that are praying for them. If they are, I don't know who they would be. So I really felt after my sister called me this morning, she had found some things on the 12-year-old's phone that were really concerning. And, we're worried about things like self-harm and, can we say the S word on YouTube?
No. We get demonetized
what goes
every day
with self-harm.
anyway, so whatever. I mean, the kid, we don't want the
He's
kid to hurt himself.
depressed. He's going through a lot of things, the abandonment issues, just all the stuff going on in his life. I just could just cry for him for hours. So if you guys could add Caden, Oliver, and also they have a 2-year-old sister named Constance. Jessica wanted me to ask you guys to add her as well, because there's also Constance is still in the custody of these other people. So she's going through a lot too. So if there's anyone out there who has a regular prayer list where you pray regularly for people, that's truly what I'm seeking for these children. I feel like they need to be covered in prayer, and I don't know another community who is doing that for them. So if you could put my sister Jessica, Caden, Oliver, and Constance onto your prayer list and just pray all the blessings over them and the healing, and the protection for Jessica and all of them, all of the kids. Everybody needs protection in this situation, and prayers for the parents because they clearly need a lot of help and healing. So if you guys could, if there's people out there who that's their calling is to be prayer warriors and praying much more often than some of us, do, if you could add them to your list, I'd really appreciate that.
Appreciate you guys for doing that. Yeah, it's a rough touch and go situation. So
yeah.
Well, I think that last time we read 6 through 10 in the book of 1 Samuel. I think we wanted to pick that up again. We'll probably won't take any active questions until, how about this? We won't take any questions that do not pertain to what we're reading to until after we're done reading. And so let's pull up 1 Samuel chapter 11.
Do I need to make room for the little
Let's
screen here?
There we go. You got it. All right. So it says, then Nahash the Ammonite came up and laid siege to Jabesh Gilead. All the men of Jabesh said to him, make a treaty with us, and we will serve you. But Nahash the Ammonite replied, I'll make a treaty with you on one condition, that I may put out everyone's right eye and bring reproach upon all Israel. Hold off for 7 days, replied the elders of Jabesh, and let us send messengers throughout Israel. If there's no one to save us, we will surrender to you. And when the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul and relayed these words in the hearing of the people, they all wept aloud. So right off the bat, this is weird to me, because you've got someone that has laid siege. So by definition, that means he hasn't conquered them yet. Okay. They're not conquered yet. So he's just encamped around their city, and they've got the gates up and they're hold off, and basically he's going to lay siege, means he's going to cut off water and food to them. So over time they'll starve out.
Okay.
Or if you can find a way to break through sooner than that, then they would try that too. So the problem is, though, this guy's like, before like, give us 7 days. So basically, he's going to siege them regardless. So I don't know why they had to be like, give us 7 days. I don't know. Maybe it's weird because they're saying like, let us reach out to help to see if anyone can come battle against you on our behalf and help us.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, okay, it's like, I don't understand the layout. I don't know, because normally my understanding of the ancient world, when you laid siege to something, is nobody comes in or out of the city because you're surrounding it. You've encompassed the city with your military forces, and you're going to stop anything going in or coming out. So I don't know how they got messengers out. And this is like him allowing them to send messengers out to someone else to come save them. It's
And
just a weird dynamic here.
I also, the weirdness to me is that his one condition is he has to be allowed to put everyone's right eye out. Like he has to be able to go and,
Yeah, I don't know. Well, he's saying,
can people just
look, he's saying,
do one of these? I mean, what's going on?
No, babe. He's saying, I'm going to kill you unless I can jab your eye out so that you'll be a lasting reproach in all of Israel.
Yeah.
So he's going to kill them. And the treaty that the men of Jabesh are want to save their lives by saying, you don't have to kill us, we'll serve you. And he's saying, no, I'll only make a treaty with you so that you can serve me under the condition I blot out one of your eyes.
Just one person? He says everyone's eye.
I know.
That's
yeah. Blot out one of your, plural, your eyes. So what I'm saying is it's either death or they lose an eye. And they're asking, give us 7 days before you do anything and let us try to see if anyone can come fight with us against you. I just don't understand that aspect, because it's like he's already there. And that means they must know a way to get the messengers who then go to Samuel and Saul. They must know a way to get the messengers out. So it's like, I'm a little confused about the scenario.
Well, that's all I was saying, is that I'm also confused by this random, I'm going to kill you, or everybody let me put their right eye out. It's just, just one of those.
They were cruel in the ancient world. So yeah, they were, it was either death or we're going to maim you in some way that you are then a lasting shame, is shown that someone else took dominance over you. You know what I mean? So all I'm trying to say is I don't think there's a parallel account in any of the stories to this. So if anyone in the live chat knows if there's another detail here that I'm not aware of, because it just seems a little weird. The typical concept of sieging something is that it's completely surrounded. They're blocking all trade in and out, all food and water coming in and out. So unless he's just like extremely arrogantly confident and he's thinking, oh, sure, go send messengers, do whoever you want, but it's not going to help. That could be his disposition. He's just like super confident that nobody in Israel is going to come help them. I don't know. So anyway, we get to verse 5 here, and it says, just then Saul was returning from the field behind his oxen. What troubles the people? Asked Saul. Why are they weeping? And they relayed to him the words of the men from Jabesh. Now, remember in chapter 10, for anyone who was here with us last week, Saul was just announced king by Samuel. And was
it announced or was he anointed?
Both, but I don't think it's taken effect yet. We're going to see at the end of this chapter. Because as we're reading, he's back home plowing the field with an ox.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's not assuming any kind of kingship role right now.
Right.
So, because remember, they were trying to find him. He was hiding in the luggage, and they were all together, and they had to go pull him out and everything. So verse 6, when Saul heard their words, the Spirit of God rushed upon him, and he burned with great anger. He took a pair of oxen, cut them into pieces, and sent them by messengers throughout the land of Israel, proclaiming, this is what will be done to the oxen of anyone who does not march behind Saul and Samuel. So back then, it was all voluntary army.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? They didn't have conscription. It wasn't like the U.S. military where you sign up on the contract and you sign away your rights to your life to the U.S. military.
Yeah.
So it was all voluntary. And sometimes some of the tribes didn't show up for a fight.
I guess I never thought about that. But...
So this is where, remember in the days of before they actually crossed the Jericho, when Moses was still alive, and the Reubenites and the Manassites, they wanted to take land on the eastern side of the Jordan, where the Midianites used to be.
Yeah.
And Moses was like, "You want your land early? We haven't conquered the land yet." And they said, "We promised you with an oath that we will come fight when it's time to fight."
Right.
That's why, right?
Okay.
Because it was like a thing of like, if you're not literally with us,
yeah,
and we let you go off your own land, we can't trust you're going to come back and fight with us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now, Let me see here. So Saul is the one who burned with anger, but it says the Spirit of God rushed upon him and to do this thing. And he's calling the people to march behind him and Samuel. And so the terror of the Lord fell upon the people. They came out together as one man. And when Saul numbered them at Bezek, there were 300,000 Israelites and 30,000 men of Judah. Now, this particular word here is in the Septuagint, it's 70,000 men of Judah. I don't know why the translation discrepancy. I don't know.
Why are they separated into Israelites and Judah here?
That's one of the questions I had too. Is why is the text distinguishing specifically Judah versus the rest of the Israelites?
Yeah.
So that's
Interesting.
what it does, right? So they said to the messengers who had come, "Tell the men of Jabesh Gilead, deliverance will be yours tomorrow by the time the sun is hot." And when the messengers relayed this to the men of Jabesh, they rejoiced. Then the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, "Tomorrow we will come out, and you can do with us whatever that seems good to you." So they're setting up this Nahash guy, right?
Okay.
It seems like they're going to surrender to him, but really there's
300,000 men behind them.
330,000 men on the way,
Okay.
right? Which is literally sizable to the American military standing army right now,
Okay.
right?
Wow.
Whereas as far as like active troops, I think we actually, I apologize, I think we have like 1 million, but as far as like not in support personnel, someone in the live chat, let me know. I thought if we were to mobilize the U.S. Army, it would be around 300,000 to 400,000 people. If it was just boots on the ground, like actual soldiers, not including all the tech support personnel, drone flyers, military brass, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. So long story short, this is a very sizable army for the ancient day. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know how many people Nahash has either. Verse 11, the next day Saul organized the troops into 3 divisions, and during the morning watch, they invaded the camp of the Ammonites and slaughtered them until the hottest part of the day. And the survivors were so scattered that not 2 of them were left together. Then the people replied to Samuel, who said that Saul should not. Their people replied to Samuel, who said that Saul should not reign over us. Bring those men here so we can kill them. But Saul ordered, no one should be put to death this day, for today the Lord has worked salvation in Israel. And then Samuel said to the people, come, let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingship there. So all the people went to Gilgal and confirmed Saul as king in the presence of the Lord. There they sacrificed peace offerings before the Lord, and Saul and all the Israelites rejoiced greatly.
Did you say Gilgal was also Bethel?
No, there's Mitzpah, Gilgal, and Bethel.
Okay.
Were 3 distinct places that they seem to be able to do sacrifices there, and Samuel would judge in those 3 places in his circuit of judgment.
Okay.
Right. So it's interesting that I don't know if I guess no one's. Yeah, Devin's saying there's 1.4, according to Google, I'm sure it's 1.4 million active. That's what I know. I know active. I understand the concept of active. I'm talking like literal soldiers, though. There's a lot of active military personnel that are not, they're trained obviously in basic training in order to be able to fire a weapon and all that kind of stuff, but they're not in an active duty role. They are,
Working at recruiting offices.
they're on a boat. They're on, how many people in the military are on boats on the sea, right? They're in a submarine.
My stepsister, she's
right,
flying planes.
Right. So whenever you actually put boots on the ground, like we're talking dudes with rifles that get out of an actual convoy, they step out of the vehicle and they step onto the ground. They're there to shoot people. How many of those people? Because that doesn't, just the overall number of military isn't what I'm looking for, but it's okay. It's neither here nor there. So the point is, this is a lot of people. This is a lot of people. This is a wave. And I don't think the beginning of the chapter, it didn't say how many of the Ammonite there were.
Yeah.
So clearly they were overwhelmed. They were thoroughly defeated. But what's unique about this is this concept of renewing the kingship here. Because in chapter 10, all we get with Saul, Samuel anoints Saul. Saul proclaims king. Saul proclaimed as king. Samuel summoned the people to Mizpah and proclaimed him as king. They shouted, long live the king. And these, I guess, are some of the worthless men that said, how could this man save us? So they despised him and brought him no gifts, but Saul remained silent about it. So I guess these are the people being referred to in the next chapter about bring out the men who said Saul can't rule over us and we'll put him to death. Yeah. So I guess it was like known around the land that, hey, not everybody likes this decision.
Yeah.
But it seemed to be a very small minority of people. And now they're very confident that Saul can lead them.
Yeah.
Because of this, what's done here. So, but that's just interesting because I don't exactly understand why it's using the terminology of renew the kingship there.
Yeah.
Because it's like they just announced he was king. You know what I mean? They just announced it.
Restore the kingdom is what some of those say.
Renew the kingship, renew the kingship, renew the... I don't know. It's interesting. Interesting language. So
Graham said, let's go and renew the kingdom there.
yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. So we'll go on to 12. Samuel said to all Israel, I've listened to your voice and all that you've said to me, and I've set over you a king. Now here's the king walking before you, and I'm old and gray. My sons are here with you. I've walked before you from my youth until this day. Here I am. Bear witness against me before the Lord and before his anointed. Whose ox or donkey have I taken? Whom have I cheated or oppressed? From whose hand have I accepted a bribe and closed my eyes? Tell me, and I will restore it to you. You have not cheated us or oppressed us, they replied, nor have you taken anything from the hand of man. Samuel said to them, the Lord is a witness against you, and he is anointed as a witness today, that you have not found anything in my hand. He is a witness, they replied. Then Samuel said to the people, the Lord is the one whom appointed Moses and Aaron, and who brought your fathers up out of the land of Egypt. Now present yourselves, so that I may confront you before the Lord with all the righteous acts he has done for you and your fathers. When Jacob went to Egypt, your fathers cried out to the Lord, and he sent them Moses and Aaron, who brought your fathers out of Egypt and settled them in this place. But they forgot the Lord their God, and he sold them into the hand of Sisera, the king of the army of Hazor, and into the hands of the Philistines and the king of Moab, who fought against them. Then they cried out to the Lord and said, we've sinned, we've forsaken the Lord, and served Baals and Ashtaroths. Now deliver us from the hands of our enemies, that we may serve you. So the Lord sent Jerubbaal, Barak, and Jephthah and Samuel, and he delivered you from the hands of your enemies on every side, and you dwelt securely. But when you saw that Nahash, king of the Ammonites, was moving against you, you said to me, no, we must have a king to rule over us, even though the Lord your God was your king. Now here is the king you've chosen, the one you requested. Behold, the Lord has placed a king over you. If you fear the Lord and serve him and obey his voice, if you do not rebel against the command of the Lord, if you both, you and the king who rules over you, follow the Lord your God, then all will be well. But, dun dun dun, if you disobey the Lord and rebel against his command, then the hand of the Lord will be against you as it was against your fathers. You know, at this point, it's like, Samuel, do you have to repeat this to them? At this point, it's
Apparently
like,
he
how do
does.
you guys, like, you know, it's just like, whoo. All right, we need a whole series of shirts. Poor Moses. Poor Samuel. I mean, it's just like, bro. It's yeah, it's just get weird. It just gets weird. All right, so let's keep going here. Now therefore present yourselves and see this great thing that the Lord will do before your eyes. It is not the wheat harvest today. I will calm the Lord to send thunder and rain, so that you will know and see what a great evil you have committed in the sight of the Lord by asking for a king. So Samuel called to the Lord, and on that day the Lord sent thunder and rain. As a result, all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. They pleaded with Samuel, pray to the Lord your God for your servants, so that we will not die. For we have added to all of our sins the evil of asking for a king. Do not be afraid, Samuel replied. Even though you have committed all this evil, do not turn aside from following the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. Do not turn aside after worthless things that cannot profit you or deliver you, for they are empty. Indeed, for the sake of his great name, the Lord will not abandon his people, because he was pleased to make you his own. As for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by ceasing to pray for you, and I will continue to teach you the good and right way. Above all, fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things... Sorry, guys, we got the window open. Above all, fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things he has done for you. But if you persist in doing evil, both you and your king will be swept away.
This has got to feel awkward or bittersweet for Saul.
Exactly.
I mean, you know,
Exactly.
it's like, on the one hand, it's like this great honor being bestowed on him, and on the other, it's like overshadowed by all this. This is an evil thing that you've asked for.
Yeah.
This, like,
Yeah.
this is a bad thing.
Yeah, here's the evil thing you're asking for, and here's the guy who's going to do it.
Yeah.
As the guy who's going to do it, you're suddenly going, geez, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. this is like the second or third time though that Samuel's done this
Mhm.
in the presence of Saul, in the presence of to the people. Is like, hey, this guy, you've asked for this guy, here he is. I've anointed him by the Lord's command, but this evil that you want this,
Yeah.
this is not what God wants from you. It's sad. Sad. All right. So we'll go on to chapter 13. Saul was 30 years old when he became king. He reigned over Israel 42 years. He chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel. 2,000 were with Saul at Mishmash. I don't know. I
Mishmash.
feel like yeah, I know, right?
Oshkosh bagosh.
Michmash in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. And the rest of the troops he sent away, each to his own home. Then Jonathan attacked the Philistine outpost at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard about it. So Saul blew the ram's horn throughout the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." All Israel heard the news. Saul has attacked an outpost of the Philistines, and now Israel has become a stench to the Philistines. Then the people were summoned to join Saul at Gilgal. Now the Philistines assembled to fight against Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and troops as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and encamped at Michmash, east of Beth Haven. Seeing that they were in danger because their troops were hard pressed, the men of Israel hid in caves, thickets, among the rocks, and in cellars and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan into the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul, however, remained at Gilgal, and his troops were quaking in fear. And Saul waited 7 days for the time appointed by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the troops began to desert Saul. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the peace offerings." And he offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished offering the burnt offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. "What have you done?" Samuel asked. And Saul replied, "When I saw the troops were deserting me, and that you did not come at the appointed time, and the Philistines were gathering at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will descend upon me at Gilgal, and I'll have not sought the favor of the Lord. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." "You've acted foolishly," Samuel declared. "You have not kept the command that the Lord your God gave you. If you had, the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time." That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure he'd already made promises to Judah. And then Saul's from Benjamin. "But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler over his people, because you have not kept the command of the Lord." Then Samuel sent out from Gilgal and went up to Gibeah and Benjamin, and Saul numbered the troops who were with him about 600 men.
Can you help me understand? I think I've always struggled with, why was it a sin for Saul to offer those burnt offerings?
Yeah, I don't know right here. This particular, from what I'm reading right here, that's why I don't think there's a parallel account to First Samuel. I think for First and Second Chronicles pretty much parallels First and Second Kings. So I don't think that there's a parallel to this. I could be wrong.
Because if it's that he's not a priest, I mean, technically Samuel's not a priest, right? Samuel's a prophet.
Right.
He's not in the office of priest. So
Well, they're assuming if they're going out to battle that, I guess one of the details that's not spoken to us is it's possible that the Levites came out with the ark because they're going out to battle.
okay.
So it's just not detailed there.
yeah.
It's not spoken there.
Hmm.
And they're at Gilgal where they offered sacrifices in the previous
Right,
chapter. So,
right. There's clearly a
It's-
place there designated
yes.
for
Yes.
sacrifices. So I've always been confused as to what exactly was the sin in offering those burnt offerings, is seeking the favor of the Lord for
Yeah.
the upcoming battle. Not
Well-
saying Saul was right. I don't know what exactly it was that was wrong. I don't know what law he violated.
Yeah, and I'm not sure as specifically as far as the 7 days and what that had to do with all this, that he was supposed to wait for this appointed time.
Yeah.
And apparently Saul was late.
Yeah, if Samuel wasn't there at the day he said he was going to be there, I mean, I guess I have sympathy for Saul. I kind of feel bad for the guy. I think,
Well, clearly,
went sideways for him.
yeah,
and-
he's acting out of zeal.
Yeah.
But clearly at this point in the stage, he still has a good heart.
Yes. Yeah,
He's
that's
just,
what I
he's just
mean.
making some dumb mistakes.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, Samuel didn't say, we're stripping the kingdom from you today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the chapter introduced that he ruled for what, 42 years?
Yeah, we still have quite a ways to go with him in the
Yeah.
story here.
So it's like it should not be fearful. At no point did Samuel say, look, man, you're done. You're done as king. I'm gonna get somebody else. You know what I mean? He just said, you've acted foolishly. You should not have done that. You've not kept the command of the Lord. So I guess what I would want to know is, I don't think we're getting enough in the text here to know what the command of the Lord was.
Yeah.
We're not told why there was supposed to be an appointed time where Samuel's supposed to show up, and what this is. Is this some kind of like, it's definitely not an appointed time as far as a Sabbath day. So like,
right. And this isn't, because we still haven't gotten to the part where we do see where it's clear that he's told to vanquish an entire
right.
city or whatever, but he brings, people and livestock home with him instead. So like, that's not this, right? Like this.
Say that again.
Later on, there's victory over some enemies, and he's told to destroy everything. The livestock, the people, all of that, all the gold, everything.
He hasn't fought yet. That's
so that incident is not what's going on here, right?
Because
he's
they haven't
also
gone to battle
told
yet.
then that he loses the kingdom for that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just trying to get storylines straight in my head.
Yes. Yes.
Get myself on the right timeline.
Yeah. So basically, from the moment that Saul is introduced into the storyline, Samuel consistently says to Saul and to the people, "This isn't what God wants.
Right.
The people are evil for asking for this, and Saul, you need to be a man of God to be in this role, and you're not doing the best right off the bat." Okay. So, and it just escalates and gets worse. Okay. So again, not that the future kings were all that much greater, right?
Some of them I would say were arguably much worse.
Right. Okay. So, he had 6. Okay. We're here at 16. Now, Saul and Jonathan, his son, and the troops with him were staying in Geba of Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Michmash, and raiders went out of the Philistine camp in 3 divisions. One headed toward Ophrah in the land of Shual, and another toward Beth Horon, and the third down the border road overlooking the valley of Zeboim, facing the wilderness. No blacksmith could be found in all the land of Israel, because the Philistines had said the Hebrews must not be allowed to make swords or spears. Instead, all the Israelites would go down to the Philistines to sharpen their plowshares, mattocks, axes, and sickles. The charge was a pim for sharpening a plowshare or mattock, and a third of a shekel for sharpening a pitchfork for an axe, and a third of a shekel for repointing an ox goad. So on the day of battle, not a sword or spear could be found in the hands of the troops with Saul and Jonathan. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had weapons, and a garrison of the Philistines had gone out to the pass at Michmash. So I don't know. Again, I know the Philistines are in certain areas, they're encroaching. I don't know how the Philistines can, at this point, throughout the entirety of the rest of the land of Israel, that nobody can be a weapons maker.
When did they become the government over the whole of Israel?
Yeah, it's
to implement weapon control.
That's not what they're doing. It's just that there's no blacksmiths. So this is what I'm saying is, like, throughout all of Israel, there's not a single blacksmith. Come on, bro. Are you serious?
Yeah, that's
like,
weird.
There's money to be made here. Should somebody not step up and be like, "Oh, I can rotate a wheel and sharpen a blade. Come on over to my house." You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know what's going on. To be honest with you, to be fully transparent, I feel like we're missing a lot of backstory here.
Yeah, there's a lot of history here that's not recorded for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why they found themselves in this position that there's no blacksmith in all of Israel. We're talking like both sides of the Jordan, Israel, not one place.
That's an ancient profession too.
Right.
It's not, it's kind of like a bread maker. It's like that's just like a staple profession in every society.
Yeah, and who's sharpening the swords of Jonathan and Saul?
Right. Yeah.
go to that guy. Let that guy make some money. Go to that guy. What is going on? Like, I don't know what's happening here. I feel like there's a lot missing in the backstory here, right? So now, I mean, we're trying to say that the 600 men that did show up with Saul didn't have a sharpened weapon. Are they showing up with nunchakas and bow staffs?
I feel like this is, just the result of a very summarized story. And there's like a whole lot more detail here and time. There's a lot more time going by than it feels like just reading through a couple of chapters. So
Look, I'm not saying you got to be some like expert weapons maker, but isn't it just a stone that sharpens a blade?
well, it is a specific kind of stone. Like there
Yes.
is a specific kind of
It's like
stone. There's a specific
you
way
you can
to
sharpen it yourself.
Well, I don't know how
But if they need a
how easy it is
blacksmith
if
to
there's
forge, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, there's an actual if there's an actual profession for that, then I would think no, it wasn't something that everybody could just do in their house. Also, though, even in modern times, professional chefs, I found out, don't sharpen their own knives. They send them out to be sharpened by professionals.
That's fine. I'm talking about making the weapons though. So like the blacksmith is someone that I'm going to imagine would have an iron forge who could actually make the weapons, puts it in the hot
Mhm.
molten and pulls it back up and beats it out, that kind of stuff.
Well, clearly they also were the sharpeners. Because people were the blacksmiths of the Philistines, that's one of the jobs they were performing.
So
He's up already.
it's just weird to me. Okay. It's just weird to me that they found themselves in this position, because you would think they would need a blacksmith for a variety of other agricultural needs and other building needs beyond just fighting, So it's just weird that they found themselves in this spot. So she's gonna go get little Levi. He just woke up from his nappy nap. So it makes me think about the modern day in the United States, where we found ourselves in a position where we don't make a lot of our own industrial textiles and metals, and there's a lot of that stuff has been outsourced to other countries, and so it just makes me wonder if that's maybe what they were doing at the time, because there was this from the days of Judges up until Samuel, there was this constant serving of the bells and the Ashtaroths, and that was a part of the trade that also got involved in Israel, which slowly was incrementally allowing the Philistines to gain control over Israel as a whole, which was they were taking over certain aspects of industry, if you would. It's interesting, because clearly that is literally the attack on the United States today, is they want to strip our ability to be self-sufficient in certain types of base foundational industries and allow that all to be outsourced. And that's what the United States is going through right now, as far as trying to get back certain types of industrial manufacturing. Now, yeah, you can always, I guess they would have a knife, if people are talking about you could hit them with sticks, but I'm guessing if you have a knife, you can at least sharpen the stick into a spear, right? Surely they at least had knives. It's kind of weird. All right, guys. I'm gonna have to help her with something real quick, so we'll be right back. Okay. Okay. See if this works. Okay.
it
And
will.
we're back.
I think it'll work.
All right, chapter 14.
Okay.
Nobody in live chat has an answer for why they want the blacksmithing land. Seems pretty weird. My only thought was it's possibly the way that certain nations are attacking the U.S. today by stealing manufacturing to other exporting it. Maybe when they were worshiping the Baals, that was one of the subtle things that they did with Israel is allow certain types of manufacturing to be done by the Philistines.
That's a strategy, all right.
Yeah. So yeah, just an art of war, basically. Verse 14, chapter 14 starts as one day Jonathan, son of Saul, said to the young man bearing his armor, "Come, let us cross over to the Philistine outpost on the other side." But Jonathan did not tell his father. Meanwhile, Saul was staying under the pomegranate tree in Migron on the outskirts of Gibeah. The troops were with him, numbered about 600 men, including Ahijah, who was wearing an ephod. He was the son of Ichabod's brother Ahitub. There's Ahijah and Ahitub, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord in Shiloh. But the troops did not know that Jonathan had left. Now there were cliffs on both sides of the pass that Jonathan indeed intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost. One was named Bozez and the other Sinah. One cliff stood to the north towards Michmash, and the other toward the south toward Gibeah. Jonathan said to the young man bearing his armor, "Come, let us cross over to the outpost of these uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will work on our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few." His armor bearer replied, "Do all that's in your heart. Go ahead, I'm with you, heart and soul." "Very well," said Jonathan. "We will cross over toward these men and show ourselves to them. And if they say, 'Wait until we come to you,' then we will stay where we are and will not go up to them. But if they say, 'Come on up,' then we will go up, because this will be our sign that the Lord has delivered them into our hands." So the two of them showed themselves to the outpost of the Philistines, who exclaimed, "Look, the Hebrews are coming out of the holes in which they're hiding." So the men of the outpost called out to Jonathan and his armor bearer, "Come on up, and we will teach you a lesson." "Follow me," Jonathan told his armor bearer, "for the Lord has delivered them into the hand of Israel." So Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet with his armor bearer behind him, and the Philistines fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer followed and finished them off. In that first assault, Jonathan and his armor bearer struck down about 20 men in about half an acre of land.
He's into it.
So just in case anyone's not aware, like this, two men versus 20 men, that is not an easy feat. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a significant demonstration, if you will, of Jonathan's warrior prowess and his ability, and even his armor bearer to stay alive during this as well. And so, because I don't exactly know like how the armor bearer worked, in the sense that I get it that he carried his weapons and stuff, but just to lighten the load as you travel, right? But then, what does it look like once you start fighting?
Yeah.
Does he just like put a big satchel of weapons down and then he's like stand there,
runs over behind a bush to watch?
No, he's just like standing there waiting. "Oh, he dropped his sword. Here's another one," or here's a katana. I don't know. Like I don't know exactly what that looks like, but to take on 20 men and to live,
It's miraculous.
talking about a half acre of land, which means you're in a relatively small space. You're not traveling. You're not running and like slowly, because there's a tactic when you're fighting multiple people, is that you want to retreat so that they fall into a single line trying to attack you. That way you're only attacking one at a time and not like 10 surrounding you, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody can be IP man and take on 10 men at one time, right? So with that said, Jonathan, I'm guessing it's basically just trying to tell us, is what I would assume, that he didn't use the typical strategy of fighting multiple attackers by retreating and forcing them into a single line, but yet instead he's staying in a small space, which means Jonathan might be a pretty skilled warrior. Okay. The panic struck the Philistines in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. Even those in the outposts and the raiding parties trembled. Indeed, the earth quaked and panic spread from God. Now, so I'm guessing there was an earthquake. Now, when Saul's watchmen at Gibeah in Benjamin looked and saw the troops melting away and scattering in every direction, Saul said to the troops who were with him, "Call the roll and see who has left us." And when they had called roll, they saw that Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. Then Saul said to Ahijah, "Bring the ark of God," for at that time it was with the Israelites. See what I mean? While Saul was talking to the priest, the commotion in the Philistine camp continued to increase. So Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand."
Okay, I need to.
Okay. Thanks for being with us here, guys. Just doing a little parental multitasking.
Okay.
Okay. Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Verse 20, Saul and all his troops assembled and marched to the battle. And they found the Philistines in total confusion, with each man wielding the sword against his neighbor. And the Hebrews, who had previously gone up into the surrounding camps to join the Philistines, now went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. So traitors who betrayed Israel went to the Philistines and then betrayed the Philistines to come back to Israel.
And Israel took them back. Like,
when all the Israelites who had been hiding in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were fleeing, they also joined the battle in close pursuit. So the Lord had saved Israel that day, and the battle moved on to Beth Aven. Now the men of Israel were in distress that day, for Saul had placed the troops under an oath, saying, "Cursed is the man who eats any food before evening, before I have taken vengeance on my enemies." So none of the troops tasted any food. Then all the troops entered the forest, and there was honey on the ground. When they entered the forest, they saw the flowing honey. Not one of them put his hand to his mouth because they feared the oath. A land flowing with milk and honey. Verse 27, Jonathan, however, had not heard that his father had bound the people with the oath. So he reached out the end of the staff in his hand, dipped it into the honeycomb, put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes brightened. Then one of the soldiers told him, "Your father bound the troops with a solemn oath, saying, 'Cursed is the man who eats food today.' That's why the people are faint." "My father has brought trouble to the land," Jonathan replied. "Just look at how my eyes have brightened because I tasted a little of this honey. How much better would it have been if the troops had eaten freely today from the plunder they took from their enemies? Would not the slaughter of the Philistines have been much greater?" That day, after the Israelites had struck down the Philistines from Michmash to Aijalon, the people were very faint, so they rushed greedily to the plunder, taking sheep, cattle, and calves. They slaughtered them on the ground and ate meat with the blood still in it. Then someone reported to Saul, "Look, the troops are sinning against the Lord by eating meat with the blood still in it." "You have broken faith," said Saul. "Roll a large stone over here at once." Then he said, "Go among the troops and tell them, each man must bring me his ox or his sheep. Slaughter them in this place and then eat. Do not sin against the Lord by eating meat with the blood still in it." So
does that mean they were just eating it raw?
yeah.
So all you raw carnivores out there may want to rethink that.
That's right. So that night, everyone. What's up, big guy?
We got the little peanut gallery over here.
We do. So that night, everyone brought his ox and slaughtered it there. Saul built an altar to the Lord. It was the first time he had built an altar to the Lord. And Saul said, "Let us go down after the Philistines by night and plunder them until dawn, leaving no man alive." Do what seems good to you," the troops replied. But the priest said, "We must consult God here." So this is an interesting thing because Saul is the king. He is the commander of the army.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the battlefield with the army. So that's saying something. Sometimes kings didn't actually go out to battle.
Oh yeah.
With the army.
Oh yeah. Especially, I mean, ancient history, sure, but yes, as we get more and more closer to modern history, they get further and further away from
the battlefield.
That part of their society.
So everyone gets fed. So everyone's fed and happy. And Saul's like, "Let us go on a night raid and let's go take out these Philistines and let's finish this." The troops are like, "I like that. Let's do that." But the priests are like, "No, let's not do that." So it's interesting because the troops in modern day war, in most nations throughout history, the troops would never reply this. The troops would just say, "Yes, sir."
Okay.
They don't reply, "Okay, sounds good. Seems good to you. Let's do it." Right?
Yeah.
Like they would just say, "Yes, sir. Here we go. You tell me to jump, how high?" Right?
Yeah.
So they don't have any kind of active input. It's almost as if, again, in the same way that he had to threaten in the last chapter for all the tribes to show up, he's still having to like get their willing consent to be like, "Hey, look, we got another battle to go to. Let's go do it. You guys are sure you're ready for this?" You know what I mean? It's not the same type of like authoritarian control over the military like we would see in modernity.
Yeah.
Like most people would see in most nations. And clearly they're allowing just people to just join them. Where did it say this? People from Ephraim that they saw what was going on and they just decided to join in. And you're just like, "Oh, here come these other people. Are they fighting against us or for us? For us. Okay, come on." You know, it's just like this is the most. It's like night and day different as far as the organizational level compared to a modern American military or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Very, very different. Very different.
Along with consulting God before you're doing these things.
Well, that's the interesting part. Is like Saul and the troops are not trying to do that.
No, I know. I'm saying that this system, the priest is trying to remind them that we need to consult God before we do that.
Yeah, for sure. So Saul inquired of God, "Shall I go down after the Philistines? Will you give them in the hand of Israel?" But God did not answer him that day. Therefore Saul said, "Come here, all you leaders of the troops, and let us investigate how this sin has occurred today. As surely as the Lord who saves Israel lives, even if it is my son Jonathan, he must die." But none of the troops said a word. Then Saul said to all Israel, "You stand on one side, and I, my son Jonathan, will stand on the other side. Do what seems good to you," the troops replied. So Saul said to the Lord, the God of Israel, "Why have you not answered your servant this day? If the fault is with me or my son, respond with Urim." Remember?
Yes.
"But if the fault is with the men of Israel, respond with Thummim."
How is that not stuck in my memory? All the times we've talked about the Urim and the Thummim.
We have talked about this. We have reviewed this passage, but we still don't know how this works. Like, we get it. One was in one pocket, the other one was in the other pocket of the high priest. But what does it mean to respond with? Like, what are we talking about? Are they throwing these like dice, and then whichever one lies face up is the response? Like, what are we talking about? Does anyone in the live chat have any idea? Have you read anything ever that told you how they use the Urim and the Thummim? We understand one meant truth, and the other one meant what did it mean? Like, basically yes or no. It's like a yes or no.
Assuming there's like some kind of electrical current that goes through them and they light up or something. I know that, I don't know. When I was a new ager doing stuff with crystals, you could tap into spiritual things by using crystals in that specific way. So they're clearly, certain minerals can be a conduit for things. So I don't know how that works when it's done righteously. I don't know. Because we've always assumed the Urim and Thummim are probably some sort of stone, right?
They are stones.
Okay.
Yeah, they are stones. Yeah. But we're not told what they are and how they work and how they actually give some sort of answer. Yeah. We just know they're supposed to represent two different ideas. But yeah, it's interesting. If anyone in live chat has an idea, if you've ever read anything in history, even if it's just speculation, at some point in history, please put it in the live chat. We've never read anything about it. It seems to be kind of a mysterious thing. But clearly, they're using it.
Yeah.
And they're expecting it to be a real thing that gives them a valid answer, Yeah. So it's almost like, is this the same precedent we see going forward whenever David would go consult the priest with the ephod? Because in the ephod were these things.
Right. Plus the stones, or the ephod is the breastplate, right? So they had all the stones of the breastplate plus the Urim and Thummim. Yeah, the Urim and Thummim were in the pockets below the breastplate. Okay. Below the metal breastplate with the other gemstones. So if that's the process, though, is what I'm saying, is that's how they got answers when they quote unquote consulted the ephod. You know what I'm saying? But we still don't know exactly how it gave them an answer, is what I'm getting at. Like literally, how did it do it? So verse 42. Hang on a second. Let's start over. Verse 41. So Saul said to the Lord, the God of Israel, "Why have you not answered your servant this day? If the fault is with me or my son Jonathan, respond with Urim. If the fault is with the men of Israel, respond with Thummim." And Jonathan and Saul were selected, but the people were cleared of the charge. Wow. Like the original polygraph. That's right. that's actually admissible in court. Then Saul said, "Cast the lot between me and my son Jonathan," and Jonathan was selected. "Tell me what you've done," Saul commanded him. So Jonathan told him, "I only tasted a little honey with the end of my staff that was in my hand. Now I must die." And Saul declared, "May God punish me, and ever so severely, if you, Jonathan, do not surely die." But the people said to Saul, "Must Jonathan die, he who accomplished such a great deliverance for Israel? Never, as surely as the Lord lives, not a hair of his head will fall to the ground. For with God's help, he has accomplished this today." So the people rescued Jonathan, and he did not die. Then Saul gave up his pursuit of the Philistines, and the Philistines returned to their own land. I am not quite following that. So God showed that they weren't shown favor to go defeat the Philistines because Jonathan broke Saul's random oath that nobody could eat for a day. And someone that's anointed by God, his authority is to be obeyed. Okay. So, and he wasn't asking them to sin. He was just saying, don't eat until we finish the battle today. Don't eat until evening. You know what I mean?
And then in the evening, he slaughtered everyone's food, and and had them. So it's interesting. After Saul had summoned the kingship over Israel, he fought. Excuse me. After Saul had assumed the kingship over Israel, he fought against all his enemies on every side: the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the kings of Zobah, and the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he routed them. He fought valiantly and defeated the Amalekites, delivering Israel from the hands of its plunderers. Now the sons of Saul were Jonathan, Ishvi, and Malchishua. His two daughters were named Merab and Michal. His wife's name was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz, and the name of the commander of his army was Abner, the son of Saul's uncle Ner. Saul's father Kish and Abner's father Ner were sons of Abiel. And the war with the Philistines was fierce for all the days of Saul. So whenever he noticed any strong or brave man, Saul would enlist him.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure that is exactly what Samuel said would happen. Was this last statement? He's going to take the best of your sons and daughters and bring them into war. All right. Chapter 15, Saul's disobedience. Let's check the live chat real quick. Let's see if anyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. Not feeding fighting men is a poor order, to say the least. I mean, yeah, you know, that was kind of Jonathan's point. Like, do you see how weak everybody is feeling and famished?
Yeah. I'm just interested in trying to figure out how the Urim and the Thummim work. Maybe we don't need to know, because then people will try to replicate it superstitiously,
Us New Age people, like, we're already bad enough doing things with.
You mean you former? Okay.
Yeah. The New Age crowd is already bad enough with taking those things.
We're getting clipped, baby. We're getting clips.
Whatever. We're going to get clipped anyways. The people watching understand what I'm saying, and that I'm not a New Ager. I'm saying we do bad enough with not understanding Urim and Thummim and, playing with these things with our own earthly knowledge. So I can only imagine how much worse it would be if they understood the true use of these things. So,
all right, chapter 15. Samuel said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people Israel. Now, therefore, listen to the words of the Lord. This is what the Lord of hosts says: I've witnessed what the Amalekites did to the Israelites when they opposed him on their way up from Egypt. Now go and attack the Amalekites and devote to destruction all that belongs to them. Do not spare them, but put them to death, and women and children, infants, oxen, sheep, camels, and donkeys." So Saul summoned the troops and numbered them at Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men of Judah. It's doing it again.
It's really, really weird.
Saul came to the city of Amalek and laid in wait in the valley. He warned the Kenite, "How do you lay in wait with 210,000 men?" Shh, everybody. Shh. Like, this is a massive swarm.
Yeah.
You can't see the ground. Like 200,000 men. Saul came to the city of Amalek and laid in wait in the valley. He warned the Kenites, "Since you showed kindness to all the Israelites when they came up out of Egypt, go on and get away from the Amalekites. Otherwise, I'll sweep you away with them." So the Kenites moved away from the Amalekites. Saul struck down the Amalekites all the way from Havilah to Shur, which is east of Egypt. He captured Agag, king of Amalek, alive, but devoted all the others to destruction with the sword. Saul and his troops spared Agag, along with the best of the sheep and the cattle, the fat calves and the lambs, and the best of everything else. They were unwilling to devote them to destruction, but they devoted to destruction all that was despised and worthless. So that is pretty much the opposite of what Samuel said to do.
Yeah. Yep.
Samuel said the Amalekites, everything's wiped out. So just FYI, guys, the Amalekites were a part of the Exodus 17. That was the first tribe that attacked Israel on the way out, to which Yahweh declared they were my enemy forever. And they were also extreme wickedness, giants, mixture of chimeras, like all the stuff, all the stuff, right? So the concept of devoting everyone to destruction is the idea that it's assumed in the text from all the context previously that these people were so deep into the occult that we're talking, they've got the chimeras, they've got the genetic pharmakia going on with everything and everyone. They're making giants, which is a genetic engineering, basically. So therefore, that would include the children, right? The children of the leaders. And we're not saying that these are infants, but still, that would include everyone that Saul lists off here, and even the infants, the children. Because again, this is in the occult, and this, I'm not going to get too graphic with this, but in the occult, the infants are not spared from the rituals. So this is where, now this doesn't mean these people are damned to hell. God's still the judge of their souls, especially young and innocents that are have other things put upon them without their control. So I hope to educate anyone that's listening. Just because these people were considered that they need to be removed from the land because of their practices, which are mentioned in various other places in the scriptures, which are horrific practices of the occult. Okay. They need to be removed from the land fully and permanently. It doesn't mean that God can't judge the people within that place as well. This was still an innocent child. He can't stop. He's not making decisions for himself. You know what I'm saying? So just trust that God is a righteous judge who judges people based off of what they know, what they don't know, what they're done, what, you know what I'm saying, what's done to them. So he's not this doesn't mean that these people are just damned to hell.
Yeah.
Okay. Or damned to the lake of fire to the second death, I should say. All right, so we'll go down here to 10. Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I regret that I made Saul king, for he has turned away from following me and has not carried out my instructions. And Samuel was distressed and cried out to the Lord all that night. Early in the morning, Samuel got up to confront Saul, but he was told, Saul has gone to Carmel, and behold, he set up a monument for himself and has turned and gone down to Gilgal. When Samuel reached him, Saul said to him, May the Lord bless you. I've carried out the Lord's instructions. But Samuel replied, Then what is this bleating of sheep and the lowing of cattle that I hear? Saul answered, The troops brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the best sheep and cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but the rest we devoted to destruction. Stop, exclaimed Samuel. Let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night. Tell me, Saul replied. Samuel said, Although you were once small in your own eyes, you have now become the head of the tribes of Israel. The Lord anointed you king over Israel and sent you on a mission, saying, Go and devote to destruction the sinful Amalekites. Fight against them until you've wiped them out. So why did you not obey the Lord? Why did you rush upon the plunder and do evil in the sight of the Lord? But I did obey the Lord, Saul replied. I went on the mission the Lord gave me. I brought back Agag, king of Amalek, and devoted the Amalekites to destruction. The troops took sheep and cattle from the plunder, the best of the things devoted to destruction, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God at Gilgal. But Samuel declared, Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obedience to his voice? Behold, obedience is better than sacrifice, and attentiveness is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance is like the wickedness of idolatry. Because you've rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. So it's kind of a weird conversation because the command was pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go fight against this people, and you're going to take out everything. People and animals, everything. Everything gets destroyed. And he said, Oh, I brought back the king.
Yeah.
Oh, and the best of the sheep and the cattle.
I let the ruler of all the wicked people live and brought back their,
I mean, at this point,
cattle.
At this point, I'm like, I want to do an IQ test for Saul.
Yeah.
Like, bro. And he's continuing, like it's
not dawning on him.
It's not sinking in.
Yeah.
You're like, bro, wait, listen to what you're saying. He said, don't bring back anything.
Yeah.
They don't care how important they are. I mean, it's like, he's bringing back trophies.
Yeah.
And you're just like
bringing back their king to, have him. I mean, in the show, he's got him like in chains in front of everybody where they're celebrating, which I'm sure that's probably how things were done. It doesn't say in the word, but yes, like he's bringing the king back as, for his little victory lap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, if you can't be faithful in these small things, you know what I mean? Yeah. Now, technically, I'm guessing no one would have assumed that this was a small matter. They go to battle, right, and he takes over an opposing nation. But I'm sitting there going, but the command was very clear: take them out, take them all out, and you're bringing them back. You're bringing back the head of them. Plus, what are you going to do with him? Why haven't you killed him?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
what's your intention with bringing him back? And okay, you sacrificed their tainted animals to Yahweh.
Yeah.
Like, bro, what are you doing? Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense here. Verse 22, Samuel declared, okay, verse 24. Saul said to Samuel, I've sinned. It just stopped altogether. It's not auto-playing. Okay. So in verse 24, he says, Saul said to Samuel, I've sinned. I've transgressed the Lord's commandment and your instructions because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Now, therefore, please forgive my sin and return with me so I can worship the Lord. I will return with you, Samuel replied, for you have rejected the word Lord, and he has rejected you as king over Israel. As Samuel turned to go, Saul grabbed the hem of his robe and it tore. So Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to your neighbor who's better than you. Moreover, the glory of Israel does not lie or change his mind, for he's not a man that he should change his mind. I've sinned, Saul replied. Please honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel. Come back with me that I may worship the Lord your God. I've never understood this phraseology of the Lord your God.
Yeah, because it's our God.
Or even my God. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just so Samuel went back with Saul, and Saul worshiped the Lord. Then Samuel said, bring me Agag, king of the Amalekites. Agag came to him cheerfully, for he thought, surely the bitterness of death is past. But Samuel declared, as your sword has made women childless, so your mother will be childless among women. And Samuel hacked Agag to pieces before the Lord at Gilgal. Then Samuel went to Ramah, but Saul went up to his home in Gibeah of Saul. And to the day of his death, Samuel never again visited Saul. Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord regretted that he made Saul king over Israel.
Wow.
There it is. So it is it's a wild story. It is a wild story of, it's like, how do I say this? It's like this is where the conversation of determinists and open theists will come in. They'll be like, well, how can the Lord regret doing something? Doesn't he know all things?
Yeah.
But it's almost as if that God knows the end from the beginning pertaining to things that he's going to accomplish and do. But he doesn't exactly know everything we're going to do. He knows where our fate will be if we do one thing or the other. If we choose life and do righteousness, he knows where our fate will be because he's decreed that what's going to happen to the righteous and the wicked.
Yeah.
And if we choose death and do wickedness, he knows what's going to happen there. But he doesn't exactly know every word and deed we're going to say in our life. And so he chose Saul, and Saul failed him. Now he regretted choosing Saul. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So later he calls David a man after his own heart, but he never referenced Saul like that.
No, he doesn't. And we don't get an insight into Saul's faith walk really beyond some of these surface level things. Like I know David's a much bigger part of the story, but we get a lot more of David's actual like inner thoughts and feelings and emotions and struggles and his faith walk itself and his relationship with God itself. And there's just
all the Psalms he wrote.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like there's so much more that we get to delve into with David's relationship with the Lord than we ever will, at least on this side of the resurrection, with Saul. Yeah,
with other rulers like Saul and Josiah even. I mean, it says Josiah was willing to repent and do the words of the Lord, but like he didn't write a whole bunch of songs expressing his love for God and, deep calls to deep and all that kind of stuff. He's just a guy that, he repented, did what's right, and there's limited information written about him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that he's still considered righteous, but he made his own mistakes. And it's interesting because to me in chapter 14, Jonathan seems to be a very positive character in the overall story of Saul going through David's life, right?
Yeah.
from the book of First Samuel, which I think I think Jonathan dies in chapter 30 or chapter 29 in First Samuel.
Spoiler alert.
So throughout the whole book of First Samuel, it seems that like Jonathan had a really good heart towards David.
Yeah.
And he had a really good heart towards Yahweh in general, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it shows him being counted as the guilty one in this situation where he's.
Yes, that's what was confusing to me.
It makes me wonder if it wasn't simply about eating the honey, but it was about him openly in front of the troops, because it was his father.
I guess
him
that was
openly in front of the troops, rebelling against the command of the king.
Yes, that
and he's the prince.
Technically, be dishonoring his father, wouldn't it?
Yeah. To where it's like it's not really about eating the honey. It's really about how you responded to with. What are you kidding me? It's just a little thing of honey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is he expecting us to not eat?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and how did he not know about this command?
You know, that is honestly the honoring your parents command is one that pops up for me that I never noticed before, and that the majority of people don't seem to notice. Because your first response to that is to think, well, what's the sin there that Jonathan committed? But then you remember, well, it was his father who made that order and he disobeyed that order. It's like with Ham and Noah, and how everybody wants to go into because they think it's such a harsh punishment for some, well, if he really just all he did was saw his father's nakedness, well, what's the big deal? And it's like, no, actually, he didn't just see his father's nakedness. He, instead of covering his father and showing him some dignity, he left the tent and went and gossiped about it to his brothers. And his brothers show us what should have been done, which is they walked backwards into the tent and covered Noah. So I think that we are so disconnected from this concept of what it really means to biblically honor your parents, that we read a story like that and we make up all these other theories of what Ham really did, because it can't be that he was in that much trouble for just, they don't even make the connection that it was dishonoring Noah, dishonoring his father to do that. They think, oh, it's such a random punishment for such a random accidental thing. And it's like, God actually really takes that seriously. In
the same way of hierarchy of authority, Noah was the top dog authority. And you're like going to, as a prince of Noah, you're going to the other two princes of Noah, Japheth and Shem, and you're laughing about the disgrace of your leader, as opposed to being like, and your father, but like, he's the leader of them at that time. And of course, as Jubilee 7 tells us that Ham already had children at that time.
Right.
All of his children, including Canaan. Canaan was approximately
the one that was first.
Canaan was approximately 2 years old.
Yeah.
So that means he's also has this display of disrespect towards someone that he should be teaching his children to respect.
Right.
He should be teaching the children to respect Noah, but instead he's disrespecting Noah in front of all of them. So in the same way, I guess that's what Jonathan did with Saul in that regard.
Yeah.
The troops were like, well, we were told we couldn't eat, and they were obeying Saul.
Right.
And Jonathan was like, what are you talking about? This is a little hungry. Like, how can he expect us to not eat?
Yeah.
And he's the prince, and so that would cause confusion.
Yes.
In the hierarchy of the army, So just as the Son of God, the Prince of Peace of his father Yahweh, always honored his father Yahweh and never disobeyed his father Yahweh, I think it's important that that precedent, we see that in scripture elsewhere getting disobeyed.
Yes.
Whereas what Jesus says is, I've done all that you've asked me to do in John 17, and I've honored you, and all that you've asked me to do. So it's interesting. And this is why the kingdom is given to somebody better than Saul, better than David, better than Solomon, better than Hezekiah, better than Josiah. All those people, and it's Christ our Lord, Yeshua of Nazareth. He gets the keys of the kingdom. Yeah. He gets to be high priest and
perfect king. He's our perfect high priest, and he's our perfect king
because he honored his father until death. Amen. Not my will, but your will be done.
Amen.
And into eternity. Now he's forever going to be honoring his father. So, hey, thank you so much, Morally Grounded, for the generous super chat, brother.
Bless you.
Love how you guys break this down. May we all have hearts like Jonathan, courageous, trusting others. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, so like, it's how interesting is it that all the sins that we're read about in these last 4 or 5 chapters, that you've disobeyed, you've transgressed the command of the Lord, you disobeyed the Lord, you didn't do what he said, in the different variety of ways that these people sin. Not once did Samuel tell these people, all of you have lost your salvation.
Right.
He's just saying like, hey, you broke You broke what God said He wanted you to do, right? God didn't say, "You may as well go join the Philistines because you're dead to me."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, "No, I still got an army. We still got people. You're still part of Israel. You just made a mistake. So we need to repent and do better next time. But there will be consequences for this mistake. But you're still in covenant Israel."
Yeah.
And this is the part where it's like, so many people just they believe God is some sort of tyrant who's just trying to throw you in the lake of fire the moment you mess up, anytime, anywhere. It's like,
Yeah.
man, this whole thing we've been reading is just example after example of God showing faithfulness. Like I said, when the first time that Samuel tells Saul, "Well, the kingdom's gonna be taken from you because you can't obey God," he doesn't say that your salvation is taken from you.
Right.
He doesn't
Or
say that.
he doesn't say you're cut off
Yeah.
from Israel.
He doesn't say you're going to be banned from Israel and from the covenant, and we're sending you off to the Amorites or something. Or it's just expected that they should repent and stay in covenant.
Yeah.
But because of the natural consequences, you may lose your role in your position. And so it's just interesting to see, like, all throughout the scriptures, the Father is constantly dealing with people who just really, really struggle to listen.
Yeah. And follow through.
Yeah. And look, I'm not trying to be like I'm perfect in my life. I'm still discipling to God. I still am learning to listen actively and better and all the time. And so, I've gotten a lot better at it since I was younger, but that's because I'm actively trying.
Yeah.
And I know that it's, it's just interesting that the Father, he knows that we're not perfect when he gets us. Like when we first step into faith and discipleship and we, quote unquote, give our heart to Christ and we start to, try to do the ways of God, God knows that we're still very much like a rough vessel. We're not polished yet. We're not perfect. And that's why he's willing to offer instruction and discipline at the same time. And, trying to prune us along the way. We're little bonsai trees, man. We need some little trimming up here and there. You know what I'm saying? Some people need entire branches cut off. But the point is, like, he's constantly working on us. And this is how much he loves us. It's not just simply, "Oh, Saul, you're not going to," he would have made your kingship last forever, but for all time, but instead he's going to take it from you because you can't obey him. He didn't say, "Saul, like, you're out of Israel." He even allowed him to stay king for another 30 years.
Yeah.
Like that's,
Yeah.
that's the wild part.
Someone was asking, wasn't Jonathan and his servant not there when that command was given? No, they weren't, but they were told that command.
They were told it.
When he ate the honey, he was told, and his response wasn't, "Oh my gosh, I need to repent of this." His response was, "What's the big deal? How are you going to send these men out after fasting? They need to have fuel." So it was his response to being told, "Your father made us take an oath."
Yep.
So
yeah, his response should have been, what did my dad instruct? The entire army is telling him,
yeah,
"Whoa, well, there's a reason we're not eating, man." Your dad said, "I know you weren't here, so we're catching you up real quick." And he should have just been very humble and say, "Look, if my dad said that, I'm gonna go check with him.
Yes.
And if my dad said that, then everyone should obey this."
Right.
But instead he was like, "Whatever, man." He dipped it in and he's like just nonchalantly brushed off his dad's command in front of the troops. That's like a huge no-no. That's like a huge no-no. You can't have that level of insubordination in the army. Again, because like I said throughout this reading, Saul is constantly like trying to assure and affirm the people that are willing to fight with him.
Yeah.
He's still trying to gain control over these people.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have like full control of these people. He's like, "Are you going to fight with me? Because I want to go do this.
Yeah.
You want to go fight with me? Good. Okay, let's go." And if clearly there was other people that were defecting from Israel to the Philistines and then being wish-washy and coming back. And the people of Ephraim, they saw there's a battle going on and they hadn't already there fighting. And only when Israel's winning, they decide to get involved. And like, bro, anyway. So we have a question here from Eline is asking, Eline, I hope I'm saying that right, sister. Eline, I don't even know how you say her name. She's asking, though, breaking his commandments leads to insanity, right? Deuteronomy 28:28. Wasn't this what happened to Saul? It can be one of the command, like it's usually at the furthering end, which is, I think, what we see with Saul furthering into his life as he continued to rebel against God. This is when the disturbing spirits would come upon him and cause him to act irrational and out of his mind.
I see another important question I need to answer. We don't have cats in this house. That's a dog.
Yeah.
I'm not a cat hater, but we're dog people.
Yes.
That's our small dog, Resner. No, he's not huge. He's actually small. He's
Yeah.
like me. He's
like-
smaller than medium, a little smaller than medium size. He's a giant Chihuahua.
Maybe 20 pounds, maybe.
Or like 30. He's kind of a fatty. Hey, Minnie. You want to say hi to everyone?
Ma-
Say hi. See, maybe this will help you see how his size.
He's a medium dog. Guys, my brother is still pretty much the same. He's still doing through rehabilitation in various of ways and trying to regain some of his dexterity and motion. And so he still needs a lot of help, a lot of prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. And our sister-in-law as well, his wife.
Yeah.
You guys could lift Julia up as well. It's a very hard change for her.
YouTube user is asking, in the Testament of Job, why is Elihu punished more than Job's other friends? What did he do or say that was worse than the other three? If I'm not mistaken, Elihu was the fourth, right? He was the last guy to speak. I don't remember right off the bat, brother. I'd have to. I do remember him being punished differently in some regard, or being viewed as more guilty than the others as well. I would have to look it up and reread the entirety of the context to even have a guess at what it is. Because if those passages you quoted to me doesn't directly tell you, and you're asking me, then I would imagine I would have to like look deeper into the reading of the entire text to try to figure out and weigh his words with the other people's. So I apologize. It's a tough question for me to answer on the fly. I would have to like go back and read the whole text to give you a good, thorough answer. Okay, so I appreciate the generous donation, but I can't give you a good answer right now without stepping away and interrupting the stream and going and researching for 30 minutes because I don't remember offhand everything that he said versus the other guys in the Testament of Job. So I apologize, brother. In a general sense, I would guess his demeanor, his disposition, and how he represented God would be the indicator to why he would be dealt with more severely than the others. Rolas 82, have we done a study on marriage and relationships? Yes. So there is, remember the name of that?
Called biblical marriage. I
Okay,
think.
yeah. So if you type in YouTube search bar, Kingdom and Context, Biblical Marriage, that should be the title of the video. It should pop up.
Also, there's another good one called Husbands Love Your Wives.
We have another video called Husbands Love Your Wives.
I'm putting them in the.
My wife's going to put both links to those in the live chat real quick. Michael's asking, Sean, do you think there might be a symbolic statement at the beginning of the passage with the Nahash and the threat to remove one eye? Snake meaning in Nahash and the establishment of the eye? Possibly. Clearly, the Ammonites at that time were not worshiping God. And they were a part of the worship of Baals and Ashtaroth. So it's possible because that was, part of the Baals was worshiping of the serpent god. So it's very possible. I don't want to infer too much meaning that the text doesn't really say, but I see what you're saying, and it would be synonymous with the serpent worshiping cults that was a part of the Baals.
Yeah, and was Nahash just what the Hebrews called him, or
Well,
was it his name in the Amalekite language? Because that would have a different meaning.
I thought the word for serpent in Hebrew was nekash with the C, but regardless, I still know there was serpent worshiping happening amongst Baal worshipers. So. Scotty's asking, my Baptist pastor answered my question about changing the Sabbath with Acts 20, verse 7. Okay. So let's go look at Acts 20, verse 7. I'm guessing they assembled on the Lord's Day. Yeah. So in Acts 20, verse 7, it says, on the first day we came together to break bread. Since Paul was ready to leave the next day, he talked to them and kept on speaking until midnight. So yeah, the fact that the disciples would get together on the first day of the week to get together doesn't mean that that the Sabbath was changed. I mean, this is just like I mean, it's the logic that goes into these arguments, and this is a very typical argument from early church fathers when they desired to change the observance away from the seventh day to the first day of the week, is they would say, well, the disciples would meet on the first day of the week, but the disciples were also in fear of the Sanhedrin, which oversaw the Sabbath observances, the Pharisees overseeing the synagogue of Sabbath observances. So like it was, there was this is, I guess, the historical difference between the persecution of the I should say it like this: the off and on persecution of the disciples in Jerusalem surrounding region versus the lack of persecution of followers of Yahweh and Yeshua in that attended synagogues throughout, the Mediterranean, through Ephesus and Galatia and Macedonia and those other places that Paul went and evangelized, that we see in earlier spots in the book of Acts, where Paul would go freely into the synagogues, and they would be able to, on the Sabbath, and they would be able to evangelize both the Jews and the Gentile converts and try to teach them about Christ. And some, go through the rest of Acts and read all the details. Some accepted, some didn't. But when it came to Jerusalem, that's where the hotbed of persecution was still going on, where it was like an off and on thing, like depends on who was in charge at the time. They were mad at the disciples and the followers of Christ. And they wanted to, I mean, this is why in Acts 24, when James, Peter, and John asked Paul to take these men to the temple and do their vow offerings, they arrest Paul when they see him at the temple, because he was now a follower of the way, and he's coming to the temple, and they're mad at him. And like, they should have left him alone if they're not trying to persecute people who follow in Christ. So there's a difference. There's it's kind of a subtle historical difference. Two things to answer your question. Number one, they could have assembled on the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth day of the week. They could have assembled every day of the week. It doesn't change the Sabbath. God said his Sabbath is eternal, and we see in future in prophecy, when his kingdom comes, all nations are taught how to obey the Sabbath, which is the second day of the week, as well as the Sabbaths of his feast days. So that's not changing. That doesn't change. There is no declaration by any apostle or any prophet of God that the Sabbath of God did change in the New Testament. So that's number one. Number two, there's a subtle background context to the the disciples of Christ in the Jerusalem area suffering off and on persecution by the Sanhedrin, which includes the Pharisees who oversaw the synagogue meetings on the Sabbath. So this was a big different context of what's going on in Jerusalem versus the rest of the Mediterranean, where Paul would go on his missionary journeys to evangelize people. So that's why in Acts 15, whenever they're talking about Paul and Barnabas come back from their missionary journey, and they're talking about people they've evangelized and what should those new converts do first, that's why James's statement is, well, they're going to, these four things they should do from Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and then they'll learn the rest as they go to this Saturday Sabbath synagogue meeting, which you hear the reading of Moses every week, right? That's speaking about the converts that Paul and Barnabas were asking about throughout the Mediterranean, not specifically the Acts 20 and 21 context of them being back in Jerusalem, where there was ongoing persecution. So there's some nuances there, but at the same time, the general command for Sabbath has never changed. Early church fathers changed it. I think it's the Council of Laodicea. They decided that they were going to officially change from the Saturday to the first day of the week, the Sunday, the venerable day of the sun. So then that's where it became a Christian tradition, and they moved away from the biblical command.
I've also heard it explained. If you look at verse 6, it talks about how they were just keeping the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And looking into the actual Greek of the passage for verse 7 uses the word Sabbaton.
Sabbaton, yeah.
So it could actually be a mistranslation and actually be referring to the first of the Sabbaths, because once you're done with unleavened bread, you start counting 7 Sabbaths to Shavuot. So you could also talk to your pastor and ask him if he's ever heard that explanation of that passage, that it's actually not a proper translation of the Greek.
So in the Good News translation, they say it's on Saturday. On Saturday evening,
Interesting.
we gather
Interesting.
together for a fellowship meal.
Interesting. Wow. There's actually a mainstream translation out there that told the truth.
And in one of the Sabbaths, the
Interesting.
disciples having been assembled together to break bread.
Wow, that's the literal translation.
The literal translation.
Wow. Yeah, I would.
Then the Catholic domain says, then on the first Sabbath, we need to assemble together to break bread.
Yeah.
Good call, sweetie. I never heard that before.
Oh, you didn't?
Never heard that before. No.
Yeah, I heard that way back when I first started keeping the Sabbath.
The God Be New Testament says on the first of the Sabbath.
But I never thought to look at other translations, because there it's confirmed that clearly this could be translated as the first of the Sabbaths.
I don't know who World New Testament is, but he translates it also that way.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Oh.
That's our high five.
Did I just teach you? I think that might be a first.
Sure, baby. Sure.
Thanks for giving me that one, babe.
We work together. You access some deep cut in your back of your
Something
brain.
in my memories brought that one.
I
up.
know. I'm
So-
glad that I looked up that various translations. So, regardless, the
Yeah, even if
Sabbath
it-
Sabbath
even if
wasn't
it-
changed.
Yeah, even if
regardless.
that was a proper translation, it still isn't saying, and the Sabbath was changed to Sunday.
Yeah.
So either way, it's wrong. But you
Yeah.
definitely, if I were you, I would take that translation issue back to the pastor and, volley back to him. Or I guess they don't use. That's like tennis, but
I guess I always try to approach it from just the foundational concept of you can't just have like something like the Sabbath, what God says established on the seventh day of creation, that he said is a sign of someone being in covenant with him in Exodus 31.
perpetually, forever.
And that it's Leviticus 23, Exodus 23, Isaiah 66. It's going to be something that all of Israel plus all nations are required to obey. So I look at it from like an overarching fundamental concept. Like fundamentally, it's ingrained in creation. It can't just be randomly changed without a large announcement
Yes.
by the Father. It can't just be randomly and quietly changed by a couple of disciples 30, 40 years after Christ ascended.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm supposed to believe that that's an official change just because the disciples decided we're going to meet on this particular day that's
Right.
not the Sabbath. When there's other spots in Acts where they are meeting on the Sabbath.
Yes.
Like there's over 80 different times in Acts it mentions they are meeting on the Sabbath.
Yep.
And this is where Paul is trying to evangelize people that are meeting on the Sabbath. So
This is
it's
why
like,
when people ask us what's your favorite translation, Sean is always saying we don't have we have one or two that we like to read from for readability on our live streams. But
Right.
in terms of like what we use to study, that's why Sean's always telling you, go to one of these websites that have all these translations, because you can cross reference them and you can actually learn, oh, maybe the translations that everybody else has been reading aren't the accurate ones. King G, I don't have a video off the top of my head in particular on that specific topic, but I can tell you that back when I first became a Christian, was coming out of the New Age movement and having all these identity crises about the music, the musicians that I listened to, a ministry that really helped me understand a lot of that was Good Fight Ministries. Let me drop his channel for you in here. What is the pastor's name? He does a lot of work exposing that whole thing with music and its influence over us. Yeah. Joe Schimmel is the pastor, Pastor Joe Schimmel. And I'll put his channel in here for you. Now, Pastor Joe Schimmel is a mainstream pastor, so he's not teaching Torah as we understand it, like we do on our channel. But in terms of good quality videos breaking down these issues, I would send you over to his channel to check his stuff out and try and find some things over there to share.
yeah, you can also check out our Lo-Fi Disciple broadcast from yesterday, where I
that's
review
true.
Project Pat's testimony and coming to Christ. He was formerly with 3-6 Mafia, and his older brother started 3-6 Mafia, and he was obviously with them, rapping with them for years, and how he talks about how these songs they wrote were under the influence of not God's spirit, but other bad spirits. And that he's basically saying that, it's not music that he's involved in anymore because he became a Christian and serving Christ.
Scotty Fleming. Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty sure that's the one that I saw years ago. The name of the video that I think I saw was They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll. Yeah, we can definitely pray for her. It's so funny you're bringing this up because actually this might be a fun little testimony to share. Over the last week, I've had some revelations of how when there's so many things that change when you have the Spirit of God inside you versus when you didn't, and the way that you see the world and the things that matter to you and what is basically your religion. Because I think by default, humans have some sort of religion, and whether it's something they label with terms from the Bible or with religious terms, or it's something like politics. I've realized how much politics can be a religion for people. But I have been realizing that my religion before I became a Christian was a lot of it was music. And a lot of my philosophies and beliefs came from music. A lot of my opinions came from the musicians I listened to. A lot of my ways of coping with the world and things happening in my life were my music. And I've just been reflecting so much in the last week of how much that stuff doesn't matter to me anymore because I have the real Spirit in me now. I have God in my life. I have a real religion now. I have a real God to worship. And it's like, if you had known me 12 years ago, you would know how crazy it is for me to say, I never bought the new Tool album. I didn't even know it was released. And I didn't even know they were touring and in town, whenever they came around and I realized there were Tool tickets for sale. It was like, at that time in my life, I was a Christian at that point, and they're not even on my radar anymore. But before, if you had known me before, that was like, I used to tell people that when I struggled with suicidal ideation, that I deliberately would not go through with that because I was still waiting for the new Tool album. So at least I had something in my life, I guess, that gave me a little hope and kept me around. But I look at that now and I think, wow, like I was seriously devoted to a group of human beings, human beings who, as it turned out, are just as deceived as I was, maybe even more deceived than I was, maybe even further into some things than I ever could have been.
They were the biggest tools.
Yes, that's the irony of it all. The biggest tools for Satan. But it's interesting that you're, asking for, prayers for your child for deliverance from music specifically, because I didn't really realize, even throughout this whole walk as a Christian, it didn't really set in to me until the last week, like how much of a religion it really can be.
Yeah,
it's great.
Music's powerful.
Yeah.
Walking with Yeshua is asking, how would you get through to somebody who just won't hear you out because of their church doctrine? They get angry when you try to speak to them about God's ways. I would say back off, honestly.
Yeah.
I say if you've already tried to plant the seed with them, you need to back off and you need to allow God to continue to work on them. You just walk it out. You've already done the speaking now. So now you just walk it out in their presence and just love them, be there for them. Because usually people don't listen to you. It's when it comes to doctrinal cognitive dissonance, it requires a really strong and intimate relationship before they will listen to you and not try to fight you, right? Or just be patient with you. But again, I don't know your relationship with these people, and I don't know how many times you've tried to bring it up and in what way, how those conversations went. So I would just say you just pray for them. Remember, the Holy Spirit is in their life. So you're praying that God would do what he does, right? Use the Holy Spirit to affect them, to mature them. You've said enough words that you can say, and now I would just back off and I would just be the lights, be the truth around them, walk in love. And, look, we have to keep Romans 14 in mind at some point, right? That we're not here to judge another servant of the master. Like he's their servant and he's working in their lives. He's their disciple. He's their shepherd. And sometimes we just gotta, if we've already made our initial proclamation, if you will, if we've already made our initial statement to them or statements and it just hasn't gone well, you may not be the one that's God's going to use to affect change in their life. So I would back off and just pray for them.
Yeah, I would say when you're asking the very question itself, how do you get through to someone? It's not us who gets through to people. It is the Holy Spirit. And I always try to encourage people to let your walk be the witness. If you've had all the opportunities to share the words and the words don't seem to be setting in, in our experience, the best approach is to lay back a little bit, get a little laid back about it, start focusing on yourself, worry about your walk, and just let that peace that surpasses understanding and let the blessings of obedience just speak for themselves. And I've told the story before that I had one of my closest friends when I became a Christian was so upset because we were all into New Age stuff together, and he hated Christianity and the Bible. And he told me he wanted to delete me on Facebook and everything. And I never went to him and tried to evangelize to him, because being a former New Ager, I knew that wasn't going to do anything. That was only going to incite him. So he would come on my posts and get triggered and, try to say, start debates and arguments about Christianity. And I would just tell him, hey, I understand your worldview. That's the worldview I came from. I can't change the fact that Christ changed my life. And, I can't deny what happened to me, and that's okay if you want to delete me. I get it, man. I get it. I would want to delete me too. The old me would not want to be friends with the new me. So that was where I left it. And then I just let my peace and my life and my faith do the talking. And 7 years down the line, he's calling me to invite us to his baptism, and he told me a big part of that was because I never directly evangelized to him. I evangelized to him by not evangelizing to him, if that makes sense. Like, it was just how I lived and how I interacted with others and didn't beat people over the head with the Bible that attracted him to learning about the faith. So that would be my big encouragement. I think we're probably out of time. I think we got all the quiet time out of him that we're going to get. You want me to? Here, let me just move over.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we would encourage.
That's right. Say hi.
Say hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hello. All right. Well, I'll answer this one last question, and we'll probably have to go for today. But so, Logical Idiot's asking, can you understand what Paul means in 2 Corinthians 11, 6-8? He robbed churches. So in this passage here, all he's trying to say is that he talks throughout 1st and 2nd Corinthians how he did not take support from them like he was honored, like he was supposed to receive. So he built tents. He worked a job because he stayed with him for like a year and a half to try to teach them God's word. And he worked a job while he was with them so that he would not have to take a donation from them. But with other churches, he did take a donation from. And so he's just speaking in metaphoric, hyperbolic language. He's not literally robbing anybody, but it's in reference to the many different times in 1st and 2nd Corinthians that he reminds them that he took no support from them because he labored in love with them for free and went above and beyond to make sure that they were discipled. And so, but he did take from Galatia and Philippi and Colossians, he did take a support from them. That's what he's referring to. He's just basically saying, look, I robbed other people to work for free for you. So take seriously everything I've taught you, because I went above and beyond in order to make sure that he was stable, basically using the funds that other people donated to him while he was still living there with them, because he wanted to make sure they were stable. That's all he's getting at. He didn't actually rob anybody for real.
Before we go, I just want to let the people know who showed up later that we do have a fundraiser in the description of the video right now. There's a sister in the body who's been recently widowed, and she needs some help financially. So we've got that down there. Also, if you could rewind to the start, I have a kind of specific prayer request for my sister and her 2 new foster children, and their sister. So if you could go back to the beginning, I explained it all then. And yeah, I think that's everything.
That's it.
So
let me turn this off. Thank you guys. Say bye-bye. Say
Bye bye.
Say bye-bye,
Bye bye.
everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Have a
Have a
great
good day.
week. Love you guys.